Hello everyone, welcome to episode number 2 of Import Tutorial. In this episode we're going to talk about the basics of Cocos2D and also learn how to add a sprite to the scene. So first just let me talk about kind of Cocos2D and how it actually handles that. So Cocos2D has a subclass of NS object called CC node, which you can also see here. So there is documentation on Cocos2D which I'm going to link in the thread for this episode. I'm also going to link it in the sticky thread in the Import Tutorial section on the Calis Projects forum. But I'm going to just read from the document here on CC node. So CC node is the base class for all objects displayed by Cocos2D. CC node handles transformations, can have a content size, and provides coordinate systems for its child nodes. So the CC scene, which is a subclass of CC node. So the CC scene represents the root node in our hierarchy here. So we kind of, when you downloaded the base project, it already had our first scene, which is our test scene set up for us here. So the scene starts off, there's a header file and an implementation file. It starts off by kind of referencing itself. So I was asked about this in last week's episode. Self in this case represents the class. It's returning the actual scene variable. So when we have self.useInteractive, it's actually saying the scene.isUseInteractive or whatever else. So we can also see here where we add the background to the scene here. We say self add child background. It's basically scene add child background. So what happens here is, if I kind of show you here, we'll remove this code here. This is essential for setting up a scene. So what happens is here, we init the scene or initialize the scene. We allocate the scene to memory, we initialize it. It calls this method here, so it's returning self thing. So what's happening here is we declare what self is. Don't worry too much exactly what this is kind of more Apple stuff here. And what happens is any code that is run within this section here is what will be run when your scene is first called or when your scene is first kind of drawn or whatever you want to kind of call it. And then it returns itself to kind of say, yeah, I'm the scene. So I'm just going to undo that all here now. So in this episode we're going to learn how to draw a sprite to the actual scene itself, and you can see here we've already kind of done that with the background here. I'm going to go into, in next week's episode I'll talk about the size and kind of scaling and stuff like that of the window. So first of all, we reference the window size. We kind of get the scale factor based on kind of the default size, which is the 480 by 320 in terms of points. And then we get the background. So the background is actually a 480 by 320 image. What we then do is we scale it based on the X and Y value here. So if we check if it's greater than 420, scale it then. If it's greater than 320, or 480, sorry, if it's greater, the height is greater than 320, scale the Y difference. It then positions it in the center of the screen. I'll talk about that in a minute, anchor points, and then it adds to the scene itself. So I have an image here from tutorial series that I used to follow by Ray Winderlich. I believe it's raywinderlich.com. It's a rather old image, but it actually explains how Cocos2D and the coordinate system works as well. So the coordinates of an image start down the bottom left here. It's unlike Photoshop. I believe Photoshop starts off in the top right. So down here in the very bottom of the scene or the window would be the point of 0.0. If we go up to the top left, we still have 0, because the first value is the X value, the second value is the Y value. So if we go up to the top left, it's still 0, but the height is the size of the window dot height. So in this case, if we were to use it, it says win size here, but our variable is just called size, and that returns the view size. So this would be here is 0, and then the kind of comment, and the Y value would be size dot height, which is up here. Then if we got the size dot width and the size dot height, it would be the top right of the image. And if we set the size dot width and then 0, which would be the Y value, then again is the bottom right of the image. And then he has here his kind of player sprite. Now you can see something really interesting here where he has player anchor point. This point is the value that's used for when you're positioning sprites. By default it's placed in the center of your image, center of the sprite. By default the value, if you were looking at the value, it would say 0.5 and 0.5. So you can see here he has the bounding box of the image. It's not the pixels as such kind of here to here. It's the full kind of image itself, the .png, and it's placed in the center, and we can mess around with that as well. And for his position here he has, it's kind of, don't worry actually about the content size. It's the content size is kind of here divided by 2, which is here. So we kind of place it here, and his Y coordinate is the size of the window, the height of the window divided by 2. So it'll be up here and then divided by 2, which of course works out as the center. So if we want to place an image in the center of, or if we want to place a sprite in the center of the scene, I'm going to show you exactly how to do that now. So first of all, you want to add an image to your file. I'm going to show you how to add an image to your resources here. So this is a resource folder. Just expand that down if it's not. Now you've already got this image. I'm just going to show you how to add it in yourself. You can do this with any image you want, and I'm going to encourage you to add in your own images and play around as well for your homework. You should already have the CC badge. If not, you can actually substitute this for any image. All you do is click and drag it in, put it under your resource folder, and make sure copy items if needed is checked, and make sure you add it to every target, so the iOS target, the Android target, and the Mac target, and hit finish, and I'll add it to the scene so you can see it's added in there. So now we're going to add in the scene. So ignore all this code for now. Of course, if we were to run this, I'm building it on the Mac here, if we were to run this, you should see how it should look in kind of last week's episode. So of course we have our background image, which is drawn, and we have two labels, a kind of header label and a footer label. Now we're going to put our code down here. So we're going to put it under where we declared our second label, and we're going to put it again over this here, which returns itself. That should be the last thing ever called in this method. Don't worry too much about it in future methods. Just as I said, it's for returning the actual scene class. So we'll put it down here. So we can put in a comment or whatever here. I'm not going to. I'm going to show you how to declare a sprite. So we put in CCSprite. We'll call it badge. So that's our name of the variable itself. It's just like we had in the last episode. We had int. What was it? We had int my number, and we had ns string. So ns string, and you have to add the pointer for it, because since it's an object class, we had, I believe it was just my string or my text or whatever it was. So we have our CCSprite. I was asked by RedCity why I had the second CCSprite pointer here. This is to implicitly declare that this is a CCSprite. Sometimes in compiler or in Xcode stuff, you might get a compiler warning and stuff, because it's like, well, what's this class? Even though you're saying it's a CCSprite, you're equal to, and it's kind of like, well, what's equal to? And you're calling, well, next thing we'll do is just call a CCSprite method. So here we're actually telling the compiler kind of directly it's CCSprite. So we'll say CCSprite, and now we're referencing the class here. So we're referencing the CCSprite, which is the Cocos2D method. And we're going to call sprite. So this is a method within Cocos2D. I'm going to say sprite with image name. It's already highlighted for us. We can just hit tab. If it's not, you can use your arrow keys. So again, we're going with sprite with image named, and we're putting in a string. So we can actually do here, if you want, you can say ns string file name equals, and you can put in your file name of the image there. Or you can actually just, and then just replace the kind of at and the quote symbols with file name, and that's your kind of image in. But we're going to just kind of declare it in itself here, and we're going to call it the image we just dragged in, which is CP badge. Again, this should be included already in your base project, so you can even do this yourself right now. So there it is there. So our sprite is declared as the badge, so that's the name of the variable. It is a CCSprite, and then we call the method to set it up, which is CCSprite, sprite with image name to the badge. Next, so that's declared. So now we want to position it, and we're getting a compiler warning just because it's just saying unused variable badge because we've declared it. Okay, so we're going to add it into the scene. So I'm going to say, I don't know why I'm typing funny there, badge dot position equals CCP, which stands for CG point. It returns a float value of x and y. So we're just going to position. We'll position at a value, we'll just say, for example, of 20 and 20. Now by default, as I already said, the sprite is, the anchor point is in the bottom or in the middle of the image. So you'll see that 2020 should draw the image kind of near enough the bottom left. So what we want to do then is say self add child, and we'll say badge, and then what we want to also do is we'll say z value with the integer, and we'll give it 2. Now our background, as you can see up here, was z value of 1, and we want it to appear obviously in front of the background or on top of the background, so we'll add it at z value of 2. Now if we build and run that, we should get the sprite drawn in the bottom left, and there it is there. So you can see the point is drawn at 2020, it's down there, it's added into the image. Now we can change that around, and we can say size, which is the variable we have up here, size.width, let's say divided by 2, and size.height divided by 2. Now where do you think that will draw? Right in the center. So what it's doing is size.width, so it's going across, divided by 2, so it's in the center. Size.height divided by 2. So our anchor point, as I said, is right in the middle of the image, and it is drawing the sprite right bang on in the center of the scene. Now what we can also do is we can change the anchor point, which we've used anchor point in the label, so you can actually even just copy that if you want. So let's say we'll copy this, we'll put it underneath here, and we can mess around with the anchor point. So of course change label 2 to the actual variable that we're changing, which is the badge, the sprite. We can say the anchor point is 0, 0, and or 0.0 and 0.0. So F just stands for float. You don't have to have that there. We can have it just to make it look more consistent on this one. I didn't realize it was not there. And we can build this. Now the anchor point now, if we go into the image, so you can see it's up here. So what's happened here, the anchor point, as I was going to say, is now referenced down here. So 0.0. So it's down here, kind of, or wherever the content. So let's say, imagine there's a square around this image for the sprite. It's somewhere around here, and that's exactly where it's being drawn. And again, we can mess around. We can say, okay, draw it in the bottom. Actually, we'll say in the top right. So say 1.1 and 1.1. So this will be the top right of the image. So it should kind of appear, and there you go. The anchor point again somewhere around here, and you can see then it makes a sprite there. So this can be really handy for, let's say, if you're positioning UI and you want to use kind of, let's say, Photoshop to kind of check where exactly it is, the edge of the image. You can just position the anchor point, say 0.0, and that will give you the bottom left image. You can kind of measure it up, or by default you can just keep it in the center, which is actually pretty handy as well. So as I said, I'm not going to go too much into scaling right now, but that is our image added to the scene. And of course I want you to add in your own images. So of course you just click and drag from a folder, and click and drag your image into the resources folder. If you already have the image here, so for example, if you had the CP badge already in your project and you want to test re-add and you want to download, you just tap delete on your folder and make sure you always hit never remove reference, even though that's the first, or remove reference, even though that's the first one highlight. Always hit move to trash. If you move to reference and then try add it back in, you'll get crashed because technically it's still in the folder, but you've just removed the reference in Xcode itself. So always when you're deleting a file, hit move to trash. But anyway, once it's in there, of course, just change here to your variable, to whatever the image is called, or the actual image, the file name is called, and you can add in your own image. Now that's pretty fun and all that type of stuff, but you can mess around with that and position around the screen. But wouldn't it be a bit more interesting if we could interact with it? What I've actually done is create my own subclass. It is called CCSprite Draggable. I've also added this to GitHub, so if you want to go to my GitHub again, I'll link you to it in the thread for this episode. You can also just, if you wanted to, we're going to add into the source file. You can say new file. You can add in Objective C file, or you can add in, let's say if you have Cocos2D, you could just add it in and you literally just say next subclass CC node and then name it to CCSprite Draggable, which is what we're going to add. But we're going to add it in actually here. So if you go onto the GitHub, it's easy. You can just download the zip file. You'll see the two files. What you want to do is just click and highlight them and then drag it into your folder. Put it underneath source. Again, make sure every target is highlighted and pinch it in. Now, what we're also going to do to make it kind of interesting, I'm going to show you how to organize your project. Click and highlight on your two files within Xcode. Then double click in or right click, whatever you want to declare it. Because on Mac, of course, there is no right click, but you double tap on the trackpad here. And we say, you'll get this option here, you'll say new group from selection. It will take the two files and put them in a group. And of course, we'll just call it whatever we want. So we'll say custom Cocos2D classes. So you can see they're in now, and all this is it's a subclass of CCSprite. Okay, so it is a CCSprite. So just like how our scene is pulling the CC node, or it's kind of the scene, we're pulling the CCSprite here. Now, don't worry about this too much right now. I'll go into this in a later episode. But what we're doing here, and this is kind of crazy looking as well, this is a macro to check. A macro is kind of predefined a bit of code, and we're checking here if it's on the platform for iOS or if it's on Android, and we're taking in touch input. So you can see we get the touch. We have for touch began, which is when you first tap it, touch moved, which is when we move it, and touch ended, and nothing's happening there as well. And then we also have another one for if it's on Mac, and in that case it's just taking in the mouse events. Now you can see for touch moved, I'll just look at touch moved here. We're getting the point, we're creating a CG point, so CG point position, and we'll say self, which in this case we're referencing the CCSprite Draggable, so whatever we make a CCSprite Draggable, dot parent, which is then whatever our sprite is added to, which in this case will be our scene. And it's converting the kind of node space, and it's getting the location of the point. So it's basically, that's returning a position.x and position.y, and then it's updating, so it's self, which is the actual CCSprite Draggable, dot position, and it's equal to position. And because it's already .x, not y value, it doesn't have to be a .ccp equal xy, it's just saying that's the position. So that might sound a bit crazy, but let's get in here and we'll mess around. So what you want to do is, we have our import for the actual header file of our Draggable. Go down to your import folder here, which I showed you before, and in our objects, and all you do is just put that in there, and just Command S to save it. So Command C and then Command V, and we'll have our import Draggable there. And that means we can use it wherever else we import our import scene, which you can see here is in our test scene. And we're going to change the badge. Now all we're doing is changing the CCSprite to CCSprite Draggable, which should already come up for us then. CCSprite Draggable again, and again here for Sprite Draggable. Now I've not tested this just yet, so I'm going to build and run it. And it is run. Now what should happen is when we interact with it, oh, okay, right, so that I missed out a very, very important method. So underneath your CCSprite Draggable, do badge, so get the variable name, is user interaction enabled, okay? It's a bool variable which will return yes or no, and we just say yes. So that allows us then to interact with it, because that wasn't actually allowing us to interact with it. It should allow us now, and we should be able to click and drag around our sprite and have a bit of fun and mess around with a sprite. So it just makes it a bit more interesting so that you can play around, and you can add as many as you want in them. So let's say we'll just copy and paste it, and we'll call it badge 1, just add in badge 1. Don't worry too much. Let's copy and paste again, and we'll say badge 2, badge 2, badge 2. Just make sure you update the variable names wherever it's being used. So basically the same code run again. Now what we'll do with this one is we'll position it at, we'll say 30 and 50, and this one will position at 200 and whoops 200, so 200x, 200y. If we build it, we should get 3 different badges on the scene. So I'm assuming this is the first one in the center. This was the one in the bottom left, and then this one was the one for 200, 200. And again, it just makes it a bit of fun. So of course, they're drawn in they're in the Z order that they were drawn in. So this was the first one that was in the center. You can see it's behind each one of them. This was the badge 1, which is technically the second one, and you can see that's over this one, but it's under this one. And then this was the last one we added, which was badge 2, and you can see there it is there. So of course you can have a bit of fun, just mess around, and that's what I want you to do for this episode. So I'm not going to go too much into detail. I want you to really check out the Cocos2D documentation. I'm not going to go into too much on kind of the labels and stuff. They're already in the class anyway. So in this episode, I just want you to try follow along, add in your own image. It doesn't have to be the badge. You can use the badge if you want. It should be in the project. But add in your own image. At least learn how to import images. Make sure you drag it into the resource folder. Drag in the CCSprite draggable class that I've made into your source file, and then make your own folder so that way it's organized, you know where it is. And then I want you to go back into your scene, and underneath all the labels and above the return self, I want you to add in a CCSprite draggable or whatever, and just have a bit of fun, add them in, and that is it for this episode. So when you've done your homework, please get onto the forum and show me what you've done, and post in the episodes 2 thread, of course. And of course, if you have any questions at all, please ask me. And if you have any ideas for any future episodes, I have all the episodes planned up to, I believe, episode 5, maybe 6. But I'm always open to suggestions as well. And what I'm doing is I deliberately only wrote up to 5 episodes planned, so that way then I can take in how people are learning and stuff like that. I know Red City's having a great time with it. I'm going to take in how you're learning and kind of then shape it. And then of course what I'd love to do is maybe the very last episode, or last 2 episodes, or last bunch of episodes as such, it will teach you how to make a very basic game. We'll come up with something fun. But anyway, that's it. So thank you very much for watching, and of course tune in next week.